Hey beekeepers, welcome back to the Hive Doctor. As you can tell, we've got a nice sunny day. It's pretty warm today, mid 60s. A little bit of wind, but it's a great kind of day for, not day, but good weather for doing some spring hive inspections. So I figured I'd bring you through these two hive stands I have here, about 8 nukes. They've all had 2 mite treatments already this month in fact, except for this one. This one's only had 1. This was a small colony. You guys saw in my video on how to help a weak colony. I've got some feed on them finally. I had to kind of come up with a makeshift bottle and figure it out, and it's slow going, but it's working. This is the first time I've ever done this with a pro nuke style nuke box, so I think it could use some improvement, but that's not what today's video is about, and maybe I'm just using it wrong, who knows. Anyways, let's dig into some of these hives and see what we have today, so stick around. So for the most part, most of these colonies are just in a single deep, so it's going to be an easy inspection. What I'm mostly looking for is to see how much brood they have, how close they are to being able to split maybe, or see if they're preparing to swarm. First thing we see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish frames of bees. So we see the strength of the colony. They're not like 7 to even 9 frames of bees, so I would not say that they're at a point of needing split. I don't like to make super small splits. Let's go ahead and dig inside and see what we've got. I see that they've built comb up. In fact, it was stuck on the underside of my quilting box, and they've been freshening it up. So that tells me not only that my colony has a good attitude, they likely have a laying queen, because I don't see colonies that are queenless whiten the comb like this and freshen it. Their attitude is not bad. It's a little touchy, but we just had some pretty strong thunderstorms last night. A few tornadoes rolled off of it. So they're a little touchy a day after a storm like that, in my experience. This frame's got some good weight to it. I hope that you can see that glisten of incoming nectar. A little bit of maple pollen in this. I expect we'll probably see some brood on the inside of this frame, not necessarily the outside, but maybe she'll surprise us. Yep. So this side doesn't have any capped brood yet. It's all eggs and young larvae. So if like we were to start grafting, this would be an excellent frame to graft from, because it's got that right age larva. There's a good shot of some eggs. Let's see if we can get over to some of the larvae. And sometimes when the bees are covering up that area, you can just kind of blow on them a little bit. In fact, look who walked up right there in the middle of our frame. An open frame of brood like this with eggs is an excellent frame to find a queen on, because she's actively laying. And you can see what my mentor called pearl brood beneath her. That's just kind of referring to the appearance of that shiny royal jelly with a larva inside. Now, for me, that's enough. I don't need to go deeper. I see how strong my colony is. I got a bee on my mic. No doubt everyone can hear that well. There she goes. We've also confirmed in laying queen. I do want to see some capped brood, so I'm going to go one more frame and see if that's what we've got. Nice heavy frame, full of capped brood. Both sides, really nice, and not a bad pattern either. At this point, they're judging by the brood pattern, I would say they have a low mite population. Of course, colonies always have mites, and in my opinion, the best thing we can do is just to keep the mite level at a manageable level. I like to do that using several different mite treatments, not just one. They each have their own way of keeping the mites under control. Smoke them down a little bit so I don't squash them when I put the quilting box back on. And there's some bees under this. I'm just going to bump them a little, Get them down. And I kind of pulse the box a little bit so the bees can feel that they're about to get squished, and it gives them a chance to kind of move out of the way. All right, they're back together. They look good. I consider that a good report. Let's look at the next one. And that way we have a way to compare too. It's easier to tell how well a colony is doing when you can compare it to another. And that's why in beginner beekeeping, they recommend starting with 2 hives. Because you got that ability to compare. And you also have a way to help one colony if it needs help from another, like with brood or food. Now this one, I can tell already, it's smaller than this one. But they've whitened the comb quite a bit. They still look good. Give these other girls a little bit of a puff. Okay, let's dig in here. They look good. I'm sure they have a laying queen just because of their attitude and appearance. They're just a little bit small. Not a big deal. Nice weight to this frame. Oh, a lot of pollen in this one. Check out all that maple pollen. Pollen from willow is very similar in color too, and that's starting to bloom. Sometimes the bees are in my way where I use the hive tool to pry frames apart, so I'll just puff those bees a little bit. They'll usually scatter. Then I got a free space to pry those frames apart. All right. Yep, capped brood, eggs, larvae. You got to check this out though. See the capped brood in the center, and then you have like this rainbow of empty cells, and then a rainbow of more capped brood on the outside. Well, in those, what looks like empty cells, it's actually eggs. So you can see the succession in which the queen laid. And of course, all that's crowned off with more maple pollen. Nice. There's what, that's a good example of what my mentor called pearl brood. Just his own term, nothing you see in the books or anything. I like it. I have found eggs, so that means we've got a laying queen. This is one of my Varroa control frames, which is a medium honey super frame where I allow them to build on the bottom. I'll try to post that video up in the corner so you can watch that. It's just another method I use to keep Varroa out of my hives as much as I can. Yeah, pretty much last frame of bees. Heavy. They've got capped brood right here. A lot of pollen around that. Eggs and larvae in between. And then they're actually capping nectar that's currently coming in along the top edges of this frame. A lot of open nectar along the bottom. So they're bringing in plenty of resources. And they've actually started on this side with eggs. So they're expanding the brood nest onto the outside of this frame. That's good news. Good news, good news. Putting everything back just the way I found it. I don't like to break up a brood nest. There is one condition in which I will when I've got just a wall-to-wall colony, huge population, and if I made a split from them, I will take a frame of drawn comb like this, already drawn out, and I might put it like between 2 frames of brood just to give the queen a place to lay. It's the only time I'll really disturb the brood nest from what it was. But that's, again, after I make a split, because I've already disturbed the brood nest. Put this back. Let's check out this small weak colony, see what they look like. My first thought is there's less bees than there were when I moved them into this. So it makes me feel the need to investigate. All right, that's just a pollen frame with some open nectar. I'm going to set that out of the way so I can look at the brood. And remember, in that video, if you saw it, we found them cannibalizing a lot of brood, pulling it out of the cells because of the mite detection. So I've got my queen. She's over here. I see eggs. She's laying. But what I also see in the bottom of this is something you got to see. So, okay, so you see what that debris is at the bottom of this nuke box? What it is cannibalized brood that they have pulled out of the frames and dropped to the bottom of the box. Unfortunately, that's because of the mite load that they have. I don't see any dropped mites down there. I also see really young larvae. Well, you know, that could be, should be the legs. Not a good sight. And with this colony looking smaller than it did, I don't know how it will turn out for them. For now, I'm just going to put them back together the way I had them. They are due for another mite treatment in this yard tomorrow. All right, let's move on to this one. You know what? Maybe down the line we'll find a frame of brood for this nuke. But sometimes, if you suspect a colony's past the point of help, you don't want to waste resources from another colony to help them. Because it's easy enough to make a split soon here in the springtime. All right, this one's small. I'm going to say 3 frames. It's what this one looked like, the nuke here, when I transferred them. Let's go ahead and jump straight in here and see what we got going on. All right, tons of pollen here. Bees hard at work, incoming nectar. So they are bringing in resources. That's good. Now we just need to verify brood. And we've got a nice tight patch of capped brood on both sides. Not a bad pattern at all. That area of open cells is laid with eggs. They don't have many resources packed around this brood, but there are eggs, larvae, a little bit of pollen. So I'm anticipating, since I've only got 1.5 frames of bees left, that this frame will likely be more open brood, that is eggs and larvae, than capped brood. And that is more or less what I'm seeing, although there is more capped brood than I thought. But there are still a lot of eggs and larvae as well. Let's see if we can spot that queen. Let me give you a chance to find her. Let's see if we can see her any easier. If we turn this up. This is my little trick for finding the queen. She's busy on this frame. And since we've only got 1 frame left, may as well look and see what they've got. A little bit of open nectar coming in here, a little bit of pollen. They've not expanded onto the outside of this frame yet, and I wouldn't expect to see them so, based on what we've found in here today. I started open feeding 2 days ago, 1 day before the storm came in, so they're not really on that feed yet. And at the same time, we've still got a lot of natural nectar coming in, so they haven't touched it. All right, so that was the first hive stand of bees. Again, we had a decent sized colony here. This one a little bit smaller. This one looking worse than it did since I transferred them into this nuke box. This one kind of small, but growing. Now let's see what we've got going on here. As you can tell, we've got a few more boxes on 3 of these. So I look forward to seeing something a little bit further along, what I usually expect and like to see at this point in early spring. Okay, so another colony, only 3.5 frames in size. You guys surely can see this whitened comb where they're building it out. That's good, I like to see that. That alone tells me, like I said earlier, they've got a laying queen. With this kind of thing, growth is just a matter of time. Feeding helps. Pollen, they don't need it as far as substitutes because there's plenty coming in. This is good. So this is heavy in the corners with the nectar coming in. They'll probably start capping this off up top really soon here. A lot of pollen in here. Looks like they've emptied out this little area and surrounded it with pollen so that the queen can lay. She's not laying in there yet, but no doubt she'll be by there soon. A lot of capped brood, all 3 stages, looking good. Good tight pattern there. And all the holes you see there, they're not like from them taking the brood out because of mites. It's just the succession of laying and emerging. That's all laid with eggs. Let's check out the other side. A lot more capped brood. out to the edges with eggs and larvae. A lot of capped brood on this one. When all this capped brood emerges, this colony is going to explode and finally fill this deep. This is going to look really good soon. This queen's a little bit easier to spot. Nice. I don't feel the need to check out that last frame. Pretty much understand where these girls are at. I know what's coming in. I know what they're going to look like when all that brood starts to emerge. And as soon as it does, that queen will start backfilling with more eggs. On to the next one. So this one is a 1.5. I've got a deep and a medium honey super. The box itself, I'm trying to like pry them apart and it's rocking. It tells me it's really light. So there's likely chance that the deep on this is mostly devoid of bees. That's my guess, but we'll find out when we get into it. All right, so up here in this medium honey super, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 frames of bees. I'm gonna pop this box just to see what's below in the deep to kind of confirm what I thought, whether it's true or not. Let's check this out. Oh, there's some weight to this box. And they are down in that deep. I've got one frame that needs correcting because the ear has slipped off the frame rest. So, although there are bees down here, looking down between the frames, I can tell they're just starting to move down there and work. There's no brood, not really anything for food. In fact, I'm going to show you guys a trick. Okay, so you see 1, 2, 3 frames in. That has come down off the frame rest. And I could pry and try to get that back up, but that can be kind of difficult. So the trick I'm going to use is I'm actually going to lift this box off the bottom board just a little bit, go underneath with my Hive tool, and use my Hive tool and the weight of the frame to pop that frame up. And now I can scoot it over where it will stay on the frame rest. So as you can tell, these bees are primarily up in the honey super. And I don't swap my boxes around because bees naturally will move down from this box into that deep. Saves me time and work that I've done in the past that I don't need to do anymore. All right, let's see if we can find some brood. Okay, a little bit of smoke. Just to remind them I'm here. They're mostly in this half of the box. This frame appears to be empty, so I'm gonna remove it. Plenty of beetle in there. Not something you want to ever see. Crawling around. Also a great time of year to put in beetle traps. Whatever method you like, just be consistent with it. Okay, what do we have here? This space is opened up for the queen to lay in. She has laid on this side. This frame here, mostly cat brood. Definitely have some larvae and eggs. More beetles. Yeah. Almost got stung in the lip, but didn't. Those are not queen cells on the bottom of this. It's just comb that's built down, bridge comb, so we can get down to the deep. Seen all 3 stages of brood, but I like to see some resources too. This frame's got some weight to it. A lot of capped brood. I see some bald brood, which in my understanding and researching online has to do with wax moth being underneath. I'm not completely convinced of that, but who knows? There's what I'm referring to as bald brood, uncapped pupa, because these girls, the worker bees, will cap brood off in the larval stage. You should never see the pupal stage of brood. We've got 2 more frames left. Let's just look at this one. Perhaps we can spot the queen. A lot more capped brood. Not a bad thing. All right, we didn't spot her, but we saw eggs, so that's good enough on this one. Now this colony has the most amount of boxes, but don't let it fool you. The very bottom box is just an empty box, an experiment I'm doing. So this is really a deep and a medium honey super on top, just like the one we just did. And as you can tell, this is the biggest colony so far. They're in Oh, just got stung in the neck. Okay. They're a little more rowdy too. Well, this is one of those days where the bees tell me, you gotta wear a veil, Hive Doctor. So I am. Because I got stung in the face. Okay. These bees are on 8 out of 9 frames. I'm gonna just pop this box real quick. Ooh, did you see that? They're very, very touchy. I'm gonna pop this box, see if they're in the deep. Use a little bit more smoke than I have been. Make sure my movements are more slow. That's a heavy box. They're just crowning into the deep, but again, they're not really in the deep yet. I'm probably just gonna dig until I see brood and then put them back together. We're definitely not looking at all these frames, but that is nearly full of nectar on this side. Some beginning on this side. Let's see if we've got any brood started on this frame yet, since we're getting more towards the center. It's lighter, so I expect to see brood. Yep, there's some capped brood in the middle there, and if you can see the color of that brood, it's quite light. That's what some, not all, beekeepers call light biscuit. In other words, that's younger brood, and it gets darker as it ages. So it goes light biscuit, medium biscuit, and then dark biscuit is the brood that's going to be emerging soon. I haven't heard that a lot, but I have heard it referred to a little bit. The rest of this is eggs and larvae. So laying queen confirmed. I'm gonna put them back because they're bad attitudes. All right, so we got one hot hive. Every beekeeper should have at least one. All right, this one is, again, a deep and a medium honey super. I'm gonna get them some smoke. Pop off this quilting box. And they look pretty darn small. So I'm sure they're not even in the deep. But again, we'll pop this box briefly and check. They are in the deep. Oh my. And in fact, there's capped honey, whitening of the comb, and likely the queen has crowned brood down into that. So this is a centered colony working vertically instead of horizontally. That's okay. It's what they do in the spring. They work down. Let's see what they've got going on. Heavy frame, bunch of nectar coming in. Nice. Pollen. Probably have some brood on this frame since they had so much pollen packed on that. And in fact, we do. A lot of open larvae. This would be the perfect kind of frame to see the queen on because it's just larvae and eggs. Isn't that nice? Let's see if we can find the queen. Who sees her first? So she's actively laying on this. Looks good. This will be capped before you know it. And she's walking along our bottom bar there. Always the most dangerous spot for a queen. I'm not going to put this back till I know she's up in the middle of the frame, which she is now. And let's see what they got on this next frame. And I want to look at it because it's not fully drawn out with wax, but they're using this incoming nectar from maple to actually draw wax out a little bit. This is all eggs and larvae in the middle. And this side, she's started laying on this too. Wonderful. This is a good looking hive for what they are, for their size. Well, as you guys and gals can see, we've got quite a mix of different states of colonies where they're at. I didn't see any evidence of swarming. Nothing's even nearly large enough to do so anyways. And I'm fine with that. And I'm also fine with them swarming. But I do plan on getting some swarm traps set up around the apiary here very soon. I would like to have at least 3, but they're growing. I've got feed ready for them over there. I actually made a video on that the other day showing how I mix that open feeding style of feeding in the spring. Definitely not something I can do during the dearth when they're robby, because it just makes things even worse. So when I'm waiting to update that video, and when it is, it'll be up and ready for you to see it as well. Thank you for joining me here today. Tell me about your spring hive inspections. How are they looking? Put it in the comments below. I love to read them, and I'll see you guys in the next video.